Dr. Zethara pressed her 6 fingers against the cold metal table in the emergency meeting room. The blue lights from the ceiling made her silver skin look almost white. Around the huge round table sat the most important beings in the galaxy. Each one represented a different world and different people. But today, they all looked scared. "Show them the pictures again," said Chancellor Vextal, his 4 eyes blinking slowly. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks falling down a mountain. The big screen on the wall lit up. It showed old stone buildings that looked very, very ancient. The stones were black and covered with strange symbols. Some of the buildings were broken, but others still stood tall against the red sky of planet Kepler 442b. "These ruins are older than anything we have ever found," Dr. Zethara said. Her voice was quiet, but everyone could hear her clearly. "Our best machines say they are at least 200,000 years old, maybe more." A small creature with green fur raised one of its many arms. "But that is impossible. The oldest known civilization is only 50,000 years old. The crystalline people, everyone knows this." Dr. Zethara nodded. "That is what we all thought, but look at these symbols." She pointed at the screen. The camera moved closer to show the strange writing on the stones. The symbols looked like lines and circles and squares, but they were arranged in a way that looked almost familiar. At first, we could not read them. They were not in our databases. They did not match any language we know. But then, she paused and looked around the room. Young researcher Kiplo made a discovery. A small being with large eyes stood up. From the back of the room, his hands were shaking a little. I was looking at the symbols for many days. Something about them seemed familiar. So I checked the old files. The very old files about the young races. "Young races?" asked a tall being with crystal skin. "You mean the primitive ones?" "Yes," Kiplo said. "The ones who just learned to fly between stars." I found something strange. The symbols on Kepler 442b looked like the old writing from Earth. The room became very quiet. Earth was a small blue planet, far away from the main trade routes. The people there were called humans. Everyone knew they were one of the newest space-traveling races. They had only been flying between stars for a few hundred years. They were not very advanced. They were not very important. "That cannot be right," said Chancellor Vextal. "Humans are babies compared to us. They just learned to leave their planet. How could their writing be on ruins that are 200,000 years old?" Dr. Zethara touched her communication device. I thought the same thing, so I decided to go see for myself. I took a small team to the Sol system, to Earth. "You went to Earth?" asked the crystal being. "Why would you waste time with such primitive people?" "Because," Dr. Zethara said slowly, "I needed to know the truth." The screen changed to show pictures of the human solar system. There was the yellow star they called the sun. There were the planets going around it in circles. Everything looked normal and peaceful. When we arrived, we sent the usual greeting signals. We expected to talk to their simple communication systems. We expected them to be excited and scared to meet us, like most young races are. Dr. Zethara stopped talking for a moment. She looked around the room at all the important beings. They were all waiting to hear what happened next. "Instead," she continued, "we received a message that made no sense. The humans told us to meet them at coordinates in empty space, far from their planet. When we arrived, there was nothing there, just empty space and stars. So they made a mistake," said the green-furred creature. "Young races often do this." "No," Dr. Zethara said. "They did not make a mistake. While we were floating in empty space, wondering what went wrong, something appeared. It was a ship, but not like any ship we had ever seen." The screen showed a new picture. It was a human ship, but it was huge, bigger than most space stations. It had a strange design, with smooth curves and no visible weapons, but somehow it looked very dangerous. The ship was invisible until they wanted us to see it, Dr. Zethara said. Our best sensors could not detect it, even when it was right. In front of us, our machine said there was nothing there. Impossible, whispered someone from across the room. A human woman appeared on our communication screen. She was young, with brown hair and kind eyes. She spoke our language perfectly, better than perfectly. She spoke like someone who had been studying our words for a very long time. Dr. Zethara touched her device again. A picture of a human woman appeared on the screen. She looked normal, except for her eyes. Her eyes looked very old, like she had seen many things. She said her name was Sarah Chun. She said she was an ambassador. Then she said something that changed everything. She said, "We have been waiting for you to find the ruins. We have been waiting for you to ask the right questions." The room was so quiet that everyone could hear their own breathing. She invited us to follow her ship to a place she called the Archive. It was hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. From the outside, it looked like a normal asteroid, but inside, ... Dr. Zethara's voice became very quiet. Inside was a library bigger than most cities, and it was full of information about every race in the galaxy. Information going back hundreds of thousands of years. "That is not possible," said Chancellor Vextel. "Humans have only been in space for a few hundred years. How could they have information about us from long ago?" "That is what I asked Sarah Chun," Dr. Zethara said. She smiled at me. Then she showed me something that made my blood turn cold. The screen changed to show old pictures, very old pictures. They showed different alien races, but the pictures were ancient. Some races in the pictures looked exactly like the beings sitting around the table right now. These pictures were taken 50,000 years ago, Dr. Zethara said. They show the first meeting between humans and the crystalline people. But according to our history, the crystalline people first met aliens only 30,000 years ago. A being made of living crystal stood up quickly. Its voice sounded like glass breaking. "Our history says nothing about meeting humans 50,000 years ago. Nothing at all." "No," said Dr. Zethara. "Your history does not mention humans. But it does mention something else. It mentions the Star Shepherds, the mysterious beings who helped your people learn to travel between stars. The beings who taught you how to use crystal technology. The beings who appeared when you needed them most, then disappeared. The crystal being sat down slowly. Its light became dimmer. Sarah Chun showed me more pictures. Pictures of humans helping the Zephyrian people build their first space cities. Pictures of humans teaching the Green Collective how to grow food on dead planets. Pictures of humans fighting strange monsters in the dark spaces between stars, monsters that wanted to eat. Entire worlds. Dr. Zethara looked around the room. Every being there looked shocked and confused. In all our history books, these events happened. But the beings who helped us were always described as ancient mysterious races. Races with names like the first ones, the Void Builders, the Ancient Guardians. We never knew who they really were. "You are saying," Chancellor Vextal said very slowly, "that humans are the Ancient Guardians? That humans are the first ones?" "Yes," Dr. Zethara said. "That is exactly what I am saying. The humans have been in space not for hundreds of years, but for hundreds of thousands of years. They have been watching us all grow up. They have been helping us when we needed help. And they have been pretending to be young and primitive so we would not feel small next to them." The room exploded with noise as everyone started talking at once. Some beings were angry, some were scared, some were confused. But Dr. Zithara held up her hand for quiet. "There is more," she said. "Much more. And Sarah-chan wants to tell us everything. She says it is time for the truth. Because something is coming. Something that will require all of us to work together. Something that the humans have been preparing to fight for a very, very long time." 3 days after Dr. Zethara's shocking report, the Galactic Council gathered again. This time, they were not alone. A human ship had arrived at the council station. It was the same invisible ship that Dr. Zithara had seen, but now everyone could see it clearly. It floated outside the station like a giant metal whale, silent and peaceful, but somehow very powerful. Ambassador Sarah-chan walked into the council chamber with calm, steady steps. She looked exactly like she had in the pictures, young, with brown hair and those strange old eyes. She wore simple clothes, nothing fancy. But when she entered the room, every being there felt something change. The air itself seemed to become heavier. "Honored council members," Sarah said, her voice clear and strong, "thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I know Dr. Zethara has told you some surprising things. Today, I will tell you the complete truth." She walked to the center of the room and looked around at all the different alien faces. Some looked angry. Some looked scared. All of them looked confused. "My people call what we have been doing the Great Masquerade," Sarah began. "For over 100,000 years, we have pretended to be something we are not. We have pretended to be young, weak, and primitive. We have hidden our true nature from the galaxy." Chancellor Vexdal leaned forward in his chair. "Why would you do such a thing? Why hide your power?" Sarah smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Because we learned long ago that when older races meet younger ones, bad things often happen. The younger races either become afraid and fight, or they become lazy and stop growing. We did not want either of those things to happen to you." The crystal being's light flickered with anger. "You treated us like children. You lied to us." "Yes," Sarah said simply. "We did. And I am sorry for that. But look around this room. Look at all of you. You have built amazing civilizations. You have created beautiful art and wonderful technology. You have learned to work together in peace. Would any of this have happened if you knew that humans were watching over you like parents watching children?" The room became quiet as the council members thought about this. Sarah touched a small device on her wrist. The big screen on the wall came to life. It showed a star map of the galaxy, but this map was different from any they had seen before. It showed secret pathways between stars, hidden bases, and structures that should not exist. "This is what the galaxy really looks like," Sarah said. "The hyperlane network that you use to travel between stars. We built it. It took us 30,000 years to complete. Every major trade route, every safe passage through dangerous space, every shortcut. That saves time. We planned all of it." The green-furred creature made a sound like a whistle. "The hyperlanes are natural. Everyone knows this. They formed when the galaxy was young." "No," Sarah said gently. "They are not natural. They are the greatest construction project in galactic history. We moved stars, cleared asteroid fields, and built relay stations disguised as natural phenomena. We wanted you to have safe, fast travel between your worlds." The screen changed to show the Galactic Council's home station. But in this view, strange energy fields surrounded it like invisible shields. "This station where you meet, you think. You built it 5,000 years ago. You did build the parts you can see. But the foundation, the life support systems, the gravity generators that keep you comfortable, those are human technology. Very old human technology." Dr. Zithara stood up slowly. "The Council's founding charter. The laws that govern how our races work together. The principles of peaceful cooperation. Did humans write those too? Not exactly, Sarah said. But 3 of the beings who helped write them were humans in disguise. We have been among you for a very long time, using false identities, living entire lifetimes pretending to be other races. Some of your greatest philosophers, scientists, and peacemakers were actually human agents. The room erupted in angry voices. Beings shouted in many different languages. Some accused humans of controlling them. Others demanded to know which of their heroes had been fakes. Sarah waited patiently for the noise to stop. When it was quiet again, she spoke. I understand your anger, but please remember, we never forced you to do anything. We never controlled your governments or made your choices for you. We only offered suggestions and help when you needed it most. Every decision you made, every step forward your civilizations took, was your own choice. Chancellor Vextel's 4 eyes narrowed. What about the ancient threats? The stories of monsters in dark space? The legends of great wars fought before our time? Sarah's face became very serious. Those were not legends. They were real. And we fought them so you would never have to know they existed. The screen changed again. This time it showed pictures. That made several council members gasp in fear. Strange creatures that looked like living shadows with too many teeth. Ships that seemed to eat light itself. Planets that had been turned into twisted, horrible things. These are the crawling dark, Sarah said. They come from spaces between dimensions. Every few thousand years, they try to break into our reality. When they succeed, they turn entire star systems into nightmare worlds. We have been fighting them since before any of your races learned to make fire. The pictures showed human ships, but not like any ships the Council had ever seen. These ships were massive, covered in weapons that looked like they could crack planets. They moved through space like living things, fast and deadly. 67,000 years ago, the crawling dark almost won. They had eaten half the galaxy. Before we stopped them, we lost so many people in that war that we had to completely rebuild our civilization. But we learned from that experience. We learned that we needed allies. We needed the galaxy to be full of strong, smart races who could help us fight when the really bad things came back. Sarah looked directly at each council member as she spoke. So we began the Great Masquerade. We hid our cities, made our technology look primitive, and pretended to be newcomers. But we never stopped watching. We never stopped protecting. Every time pirates threatened your trade routes, we dealt with them quietly. Every time a plague started spreading between worlds, we made sure the cure was discovered quickly. Every time a race began developing weapons that could destroy planets, we made sure they learned wisdom before they could use them. The crystal. Being's light had become very dim. How many of you are there? How many humans really exist? That is complicated, Sarah said. Some of us live normal human lives on Earth and other colonies. Others have changed themselves to live longer, to be stronger, to survive in space without ships. Some have become something more than human. The exact number is not important. What matters is that we are enough. Dr. Zithara asked a question that everyone was thinking. Why are you telling us this now? Why end the Great Masquerade? Sarah's expression became very grave. Because something is coming. Something worse than the crawling dark. Something that will require every intelligent race in the galaxy to work together if we want to survive. She touched her device again. The screen showed deep space, the emptiness between galaxies. But there was something moving in that emptiness. Something huge and dark and wrong. They are called the Devourers, Sarah said quietly. They have destroyed 17 galaxies. They eat entire civilizations, entire star systems, entire realities. They are coming here, and they will arrive in less than 1 year. The room was completely silent. Everyone stared at the screen in horror. The last time they came to our galaxy was 65 million years ago, Sarah continued. We fought them then and won, but barely. The energy released from that war killed almost everything on Earth. Your scientists call it the extinction event that ended the dinosaurs. To us, it was the price of victory. Sarah turned away from the screen and faced the council directly. We have been preparing for their return ever since. Everything we have done, building the hyperlane network, helping your races develop technology, teaching you to work together. It was all to get ready for this moment. She took a deep breath. The great masquerade is over. You now know what humanity really is. We are not your rulers or your masters. We are your guardians, your protectors. And now, if you will have us, we would like to be your partners in the greatest war the galaxy has ever seen. The council chamber remained silent for a long time. Finally, Chancellor Vextal spoke. What do you need us to do? 2 weeks after Sarah Chun's shocking announcement, the galaxy began to change in ways that no one could have imagined. The council members had returned to their home worlds to share the terrible news about the Devourers. But before they could even finish explaining the situation to their people, something incredible started happening. The stars began to move. Dr. Zethara stood on the observation deck of her ship, watching something that should have been impossible. In the distance, a red giant star was slowly changing position. It was not drifting or being pulled by gravity. It was moving with purpose, like a ship traveling to a new destination. How are they doing this? Whispered her assistant, a young Altarian named Kepta. His silver skin was pale with shock. I do not know, Dr. Zethara replied. But I think we are about to learn just how powerful humans really are. Her communication device buzzed. It was a message from Sarah Chun, sent to every ship and every world in the galaxy at the same time. People of the galaxy, Sarah's voice said calmly, what you are seeing is the beginning of our preparations for the Devourer War. Do not be afraid. Every star that moves, every change you see, is part of a plan we have been working on for 65 million years. Please stay calm and watch. You will understand soon. Dr. Zethara looked out the window again. Now she could see 3 more stars moving in the distance. They were forming a pattern, like points of light, arranging themselves into a giant triangle. Ship's computer, she said, show me the galactic map. Mark all star movements in the last 2 weeks. The screen in front of her lit up with a map of the galaxy. Red dots showed where stars had moved from their original positions. Blue dots showed where they were going. Dr. Zethara gasped when she saw the pattern. The humans were not just moving random stars. They were building something huge. The other side of the galaxy, Chancellor Vextal was having his own shocking experience. He stood in his office on the council station, looking at reports that made no sense. Sir, said his aide, a nervous creature with many eyes, the asteroid belt in the Sol system has disappeared. What do you mean, disappeared? Vextal asked. I mean it is gone, sir. All the rocks, all the small planets, everything. It has all been used up. Vextal frowned. Used up for what? His aide pointed at the big screen on the wall. It showed the space where the asteroid belt used to be. Instead of rocks and debris, there were thousands of massive structures under construction. They looked like ships, but they were the size of moons. The humans are building a fleet, his aide said quietly. Each ship is bigger than our largest space station, and they are building them fast, very fast. As they watched, one of the moon-sized ships finished construction. Its surface opened like a flower, revealing weapons that looked like they could destroy entire planets. Then the ship moved away, joining others that were already complete. How many ships are they building? Vextal asked. Our sensors count over 3,000 so far, sir. and more are being finished every hour. Meanwhile, on a small trading station near the edge of the galaxy, a group of merchants was discovering something that frightened them even more than moving stars or giant ships. The humans were everywhere. Captain Relta, a successful trader who had been traveling between worlds for 30 years, was having lunch with his crew when a human walked into the station's restaurant. This was not unusual. Humans often traveled on trading ships as passengers. But what happened next was very unusual indeed. The human walked up to Velina, an old engineer who had worked on trading ships for 50 years. "Hello, Velina," the human sighed. "It is time to stop pretending." Velina looked confused. "I am sorry, but I do not know what you mean." The human smiled. "You have done excellent work protecting the trading routes from pirates. The hidden weapons you installed on merchant ships saved thousands of lives. But the masquerade is over now. We need you to return to your real duties." Captain Relta watched in amazement as Velana's appearance began to change. His skin became smoother, his eyes became more human-like, and his body shape shifted. Within moments, the old engineer looked completely human. Velana spoke, but now his voice sounded different. "Captain Relta, I apologize for the deception. My real name is Marcus Webb. I have been working undercover for the past 15 years, making sure this trade route stayed safe." Other crew members around the restaurant began changing too. The cook, the security guard, even the station's maintenance worker, all revealed themselves to be humans in disguise. Captain Relta's legs felt weak. He sat down heavily in his chair. "How many of you are there? How long have you been watching?" "You?" Marcus smiled kindly. "We have been here as long as space travel has existed. Someone had to make sure the young races stayed safe while they learned to fly between the stars." Similar scenes were happening all across the galaxy. Humans who had been hiding among other races for decades revealed their true identities. Respected scientists, beloved teachers, trusted advisors, many of them turned out to be human agents who had spent entire lifetimes protecting and guiding the younger species. Back on the council station, Dr. Zethara received another message from Sarah Chun. This time, the message included coordinates and an invitation. "Dr. Zethara," Sarah's voice said, "you have been asking good questions since this all began. Would you like to see what we have really been building? Would you like to understand the true scope of our preparations?" An hour later, Dr. Zethara's ship followed a human vessel deeper into space than she had ever gone before. They traveled through several hyperspace jumps, moving farther and farther from the galaxy's center. Finally, they stopped at coordinates that showed nothing but empty space on every map Dr. Zethara had ever seen. "There is nothing here," Kepta said, checking the sensors. But then Sarah's voice came over the communication system. "Look more carefully." The space in front of them shimmered like water, and suddenly they could see the truth. Hidden in the emptiness was a structure so large that Dr. Zethara's mind could barely understand it. It was a fortress. A fortress built around an entire star system. Planets had been hollowed out and turned into weapon platforms. The star itself was surrounded by rings of metal that collected its energy and turned it into power for weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "This is Defense Platform 7, Sarah's voice explained. "We have 43 platforms like this, positioned around the galaxy's edge. Each one has been under construction for thousands of years." Dr. Zethara stared at the massive structure. "How long have you been preparing for this war?" "Since the day after the last war ended," Sarah replied. "We swore that if the Devourers ever returned, we would be ready for them." As Dr. Zethara's ship moved closer to the fortress, she could see that it was not empty. Ships moved around it like tiny insects around a giant flower. But these were not tiny ships. Each one was larger than the biggest vessels the council races had ever built. The Devourers are not like other enemies, Sarah continued. They do not want territory or resources or power. They want to eat everything that exists. They want to turn the entire universe into food for creatures that should not exist in our reality. Through the ship's windows, Dr. Zethara could see beings moving around the fortress. Some looked human, but others looked like living energy, like creatures made of light and thought. "Who are they?" she asked. "Our allies," Sarah said. "Races that chose to join us instead of staying separate. Some became human through technology and choice. Others evolved beyond physical form, but stayed to help protect the galaxy. We are not fighting this war alone." The ship's sensors detected something that made Kepta gasp. "Dr. Zethara, I am reading energy levels. This should not be possible. This fortress has more power than our entire civilization uses in a year. And this is just one of 43, Sarah reminded them. "Dr. Zethara, what you are seeing is why we needed to hide for so long. If the young races had known we possessed this kind of power, they would have been too frightened to grow, too afraid to become strong in their own right. We needed you. To develop your own technology, your own strength, your own courage." Dr. Zethara understood now. The humans had not been protecting the young races just to be kind. They had been preparing them for this moment. They had been turning the entire galaxy into a weapon. "When will the Devourers arrive?" she asked. Sarah's voice became very serious. "Our long-range sensors detected the first scouts 3 days ago. They are still far away, but they are coming faster than we expected. We estimate the main force will arrive in 8 months. 8 months, Dr. Zethara repeated quietly. Yes, 8 months to finish our preparations and teach your people how to fight an enemy unlike anything they have ever imagined. 8 months. To turn the greatest civilizations in the galaxy into warriors capable of defending reality itself. As Dr. Zethara's ship began the journey back to Council space, she looked out at the fortress one more time. In the distance, she could see stars moving into new positions, following plans that had been made millions of years ago. The galaxy was becoming a battleground. And for the first time since learning about the Devourers, Dr. Zethara began to think that maybe, just maybe, they might actually have a chance to win. 4 months had passed since the galaxy learned the truth about humanity. 4 months of watching impossible things happen every day. But nothing could have prepared the council races for what they witnessed when the first Devourer scouts finally arrived at the galaxy's edge. Dr. Zethara was aboard the observation ship Stellar Dawn, positioned safely behind the outer defense line. Around her, representatives from every major civilization watched the screens with growing horror and amazement. Enemy scout ships looked wrong in every possible way. They were not built, they were grown, like cancerous tumors in space. Their surfaces rippled and moved like living skin. They had no visible engines, but they moved through space faster than anything should be able to move. Worst of all, wherever they went, reality itself seemed to bend and twist around them. "Enemy contact confirmed," came Sarah Chun's voice over the communication system. She was now commanding the human fleet from a ship so large, showed up on sensors as a small moon. "All defensive platforms, prepare for first engagement. All council observers, please record everything. Your people need to see what we are fighting." Dr. Zethara gripped her chair as the human weapons opened fire. The weapons were not like anything the council races had ever imagined. Instead of energy beams or missiles, the humans were shooting pieces of reality itself. Dr. Zethara watched streams of pure space-time fly through the void, warping and twisting everything they touched. When the reality weapons hit the Devourer scouts, something terrible happened. The enemy ships began to scream. It was not a sound that ears could hear. It was a scream that went directly into the mind, a cry of pain and rage from creatures that existed partly outside normal space. Several of the council observers fell to the floor, holding their heads and crying, but the human weapons were working. The devourer ships were dissolving, their twisted forms coming apart like smoke in the wind. First wave eliminated, Sarah's voice reported calmly. But this was just a test. They wanted to see what we could do. The real attack will begin soon. Chancellor Vextal, who was watching from his own ship nearby, opened a communication channel to Sarah. Commander Chun, how is this possible? How are you shooting space itself as a weapon? We learned to do many things during the long years of preparation, Sarah replied. We learned that the universe is not as solid as most people think. Reality can be shaped, twisted, and used as a tool if you understand how it works. But the energy requirements ... Vextol's voice trailed off. Are why we built the star fortresses, Sarah finished. Each defense platform draws power directly from a star's core. We are using the fundamental forces of creation as ammunition. Dr. Zethara looked at her sensors and felt her blood turn cold. Commander Chun, we are detecting massive spatial distortions at the galaxy's edge. Something very large is coming through. Confirmed, Sarah said. The main devourer force is beginning to arrive. All observer ships, please move to minimum safe distance. What you are about to see will be the largest battle in galactic history. As the council ships retreated to safety, Dr. Zethara watched the human fleet arrange itself for battle. There were thousands of ships, from small fighters the size of buildings to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed entire space stations. But most incredible of all were the things that were not ships. Some of the human forces looked like living beings made of pure energy. Others appeared to be geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly, structures that existed in more dimensions than normal space could contain. A few looked like small stars that moved with intelligence and purpose. Sarah, Dr. Zethara called over the communication channel. What are those things fighting alongside your ships? Those are humans too, Sarah replied. Some of us chose to evolve beyond physical form. Others merged with artificial intelligences or became living weapons. When you have had millions of years to prepare for a war, you explore every possible way to become stronger. The space at the galaxy's edge began to tear open like fabric being ripped apart. Through the holes came the main devourer fleet, and Dr. Zethara immediately understood why the humans had been so afraid. The devourer ships were not just large, they were vast beyond comprehension. The smallest ones were the size of planets. The largest looked like they could swallow entire star systems. They moved through space like predatory fish swimming through dark water. And wherever they went, the stars began to dim and die. They eat energy itself, Sarah's voice explained, though she sounded calm despite facing an enemy that could destroy worlds. They consume matter, energy, space, time, and even the concepts that make reality work. If they win here, they will turn our entire galaxy into food. The battle began. Dr. Zethara had thought she understood what war looked like. She had seen battles between council fleets with their energy weapons and missile barrages. But this was something completely different. This was a fight between forces that could reshape the fundamental laws of physics. The humans opened fire with weapons that turned space inside out. They launched missiles that exploded in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They created artificial black holes and threw them at the enemy like stones. The devourers fought back with horrors that should not have been possible. They fired beams of pure entropy that made everything they touched simply stop existing. They released swarms of creatures that looked like living nightmares, things with too many teeth and eyes that drove people insane just by looking at them. Observer. Ships, be advised. Sarah's voice came over the communication system, but now she sounded strained. Some devourer weapons can affect minds across vast distances. If you see anything that makes you feel sick or confused, look away immediately. Dr. Zethara watched a human dreadnought fire something that looked like a miniature galaxy at a devourer ship. When the weapon hit, both the human ship and the enemy vessel vanished in a flash of light that existed in colors she had no names for. "They are trading one of their biggest ships for one of ours," Kepta observed, his voice shaking with fear. "No," Dr. Zethar realized with growing amazement. "They are trading one ship for dozens of enemy ships. Look at the explosion pattern." She was right. The human weapon had not just destroyed the devourer ship it hit. It had created a chain reaction that tore apart everything in a huge sphere around the impact point. 12 more enemy vessels dissolved into nothing. But even with weapons that could destroy multiple enemy ships at once, the humans were outnumbered. For every devourer ship they destroyed, 2 more came through the tiers in space. The battle was slowly moving deeper into the galaxy. "Commander Chun," Chancellor Vextol called urgently, "your forces are being pushed back. Do you need our fleets to help?" "No," Sarah replied firmly. "Your ships are not built for this kind of warfare. If you try to help, you will only give the devourers more targets to feed on. But there is something you can do." "Anything," Vextol said immediately. "Pray," Sarah said simply. "Pray to whatever gods your people believe in. Faith and hope are forces that the devourers cannot eat or corrupt. The more beings who believe we can win, the stronger reality becomes against their influence." Dr. Zethara understood. The humans were not just fighting with ships and weapons. They were fighting with the fundamental nature of existence itself. The devourers wanted to turn everything into chaos and hunger. The humans were defending the very concept of order, life, and hope. Not as she watched, something incredible happened. The human forces that had been retreating suddenly stopped. New ships began appearing, ships that materialized out of nothing, as if they had been hiding in the space between dimensions. "Phase 2 begins now," Sarah announced. "All forces, implement the Andromeda Protocol." Dr. Zethara's sensors detected something that made her gasp. The nearby Andromeda galaxy was moving. The entire galaxy was changing course and heading toward the Milky Way. "Commander Chun," Dr. Zethara called, her voice barely above a whisper, "what is the Andromeda Protocol?" "Andromeda is not a galaxy, Dr. Zethara," Sarah replied, and for the first time, she sounded almost happy. "It never was. It is the largest weapon platform we have ever built. We hollowed out an entire galaxy and turned it into a gun. And we have been aiming it at this exact spot for 65 million years." The battle was about to become something even more incredible than what they had already witnessed. Dr. Zethara realized that everything they had seen so far, the star fortresses, the moon-sized ships, the reality-warping weapons, had just been the opening moves. The humans were finally ready to show what they could really do when the survival of the universe was at stake. The Andromeda galaxy was coming. Dr. Zethara watched her sensors in complete amazement as the entire neighboring galaxy moved through space like a giant ship. It was coming toward their position faster than anything that large should be able to move. As it got closer, she could see that Sarah had been telling the truth. What they had always thought was a natural galaxy was actually the largest weapon ever built. Andromeda opened like the petals of a metal flower. Inside, Dr. Zethara could see structures that stretched across millions of light years. Gun barrels bigger than solar systems. Energy collectors that surrounded billions of stars. Focusing arrays that could concentrate the power of an entire galaxy into a single beam. "All observer ships move to maximum safe distance," Sarah's voice commanded. "When Andromeda fires, the energy release will be visible from other galaxies." The devourers seemed to sense the approaching danger. Their massive ships began to group together, forming a wall of living flesh and twisted metal between themselves and the approaching weapon galaxy. Some of the largest Devourer vessels began to glow with dark energy, preparing their own terrible weapons. They know what is coming, Chancellor Vextal observed from his ship. They are scared. Good, Sarah replied simply. They should be. Dr. Zethara looked at her long-range sensors and felt her heart racing. The Devourer fleet was enormous. Thousands of planet-sized ships, millions of smaller vessels, and things that existed partly outside normal space that her instruments could not even properly detect. How could even a weapon as large as Andromeda destroy all of that? Commander Chun, she called over the communication channel, there are so many of them. Can one weapon really stop the entire invasion force? Dr. Zethara, Sarah replied, and her voice was full of quiet confidence. This is not just one weapon. This is the combined will and determination of every human who has ever lived. This is 65 million years of preparation. This is the promise we made to the universe itself, that we would never let the darkness win. As Andromeda moved into firing position, something incredible happened throughout the galaxy. Every human settlement, every hidden base, every disguised facility began to reveal its true nature. Planets that had looked empty suddenly showed massive cities. Asteroids opened up to reveal weapon platforms. Even the space between stars began to glow with hidden energy networks. The galaxy itself is a trap, Dr. Zethara whispered in amazement. You turned our entire galaxy into a weapon. Not a weapon, Sarah corrected. A fortress. A sanctuary. A place where life and hope and beauty can exist without fear. The Devourers want to eat everything that makes existence worth having. We built something they cannot digest. The first Devourer ships reached the inner defensive lines. Human fleets that had been waiting in hidden positions throughout the galaxy suddenly appeared and began attacking. But this was not like the earlier battle at the galaxy's edge. This time, the humans were fighting on ground. They had spent millions of years preparing. Dr. Zethara watched as Devourer ships found themselves caught in gravity traps that had been built into the structure of space itself. Enemy vessels that tried to feed on nearby stars discovered that the stars were actually fusion bombs waiting to explode. Devourer forces that attempted to land on planets learned that the planets' cores had been replaced with reality-warping engines that could twist the invaders out of existence. Every star, every planet, every piece of empty space has been prepared for this moment, Sarah explained as the battle raged around them. We have had 65 million years to get ready. We used every second. But even with all their preparations, the Devourers were not giving up easily. The largest enemy ships began to change, transforming into things that hurt to look at directly. They started tearing holes in space itself, trying to escape to dimensions where human weapons could not. Follow them. They are trying to run, Kepta observed. No, Sarah said grimly. They are trying to summon reinforcements from outside our reality. If they succeed, beings will come that make the Devourers look weak by comparison. That was when Andromeda finally fired. Dr. Zethara had thought she understood what power looked like. She had seen human weapons that could destroy planets. She had watched reality itself being used as ammunition. But nothing had prepared her for what happened when an entire galaxy fired as a single weapon. The beam that came from Andromeda was not made of energy or matter. It was made of pure concept, the idea of existence itself, refined and concentrated into its most perfect form. When it hit the Devourer fleet, it did not destroy them. Instead, it made them remember what they used to be before they became creatures of hunger and darkness. Dr. Zethara watched in amazement as the Devourer ships began to change. The twisted living metal straightened and became clean. The nightmare creatures stopped screaming and became silent. The holes they had torn in space began to heal. What is happening to them? She asked. They are remembering. Sarah replied, and her voice was full of sadness. Long ago, before they became devourers, they were people like us. They had hopes and dreams and love, but they chose to let hunger consume everything else they were. The Andromeda beam is showing them what they gave up. Some of the devourer ships simply faded away, their crews choosing to let themselves disappear, rather than continue existing as monsters. Others began to change shape, becoming clean and beautiful as they returned to what they had been millions of years ago. But the largest devourer vessels, the ones that had been consumed by darkness for so long that they had forgotten their original nature, fought against the change. They fired their entropy weapons at Andromeda, trying to corrupt the weapon galaxy and turn it into another feeding ground. That was when the humans revealed their final secret. All across the galaxy, beings that looked human began to glow with inner light. They rose from planets and ships and space stations, millions of them, all connected by bonds of love and hope and shared purpose. They were not just individual humans anymore. They were part of something larger, something that existed in the space between thoughts and dreams. We are not just one species. Sarah's voice came from everywhere at once, as if the galaxy itself was speaking. We are every being who ever chose to protect rather than consume, to build rather than destroy, to love rather than hate. We are the universe's way of defending itself against the darkness. The glowing humans joined their power with Andromeda's beam, and suddenly the weapon was not just firing concentrated existence. It was firing hope itself, love itself, the fundamental forces that made life worth living. The remaining devourer ships could not withstand that kind of attack. They dissolved like shadows when light is turned on, fading away until nothing remained but empty space and distant stars. For a moment, the galaxy was completely silent. Then slowly, the human forces began to stand down. The weapon platforms powered down. The reality-warping engines went quiet. Andromeda began its long journey back to its original position. "Is it over?" Dr. Zithara asked quietly. "This battle is over," Sarah replied, and now she sounded like a normal human woman again, tired but happy. "The devourers who came here are gone. The holes they tore in space are healing. The darkness they brought with them is fading." "And the humans?" Chancellor Vextel asked. "What happens now?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Now we go back to being your neighbors and friends. We will help you rebuild anything that was damaged. We will continue to watch and protect, but more openly now. The galaxy has seen what we really are, and we have seen that you can be trusted with the truth." Dr. Zithara looked out at the stars, which seemed brighter than they had before the battle. "Will you keep pretending to be primitive?" "No," Sarah said with a gentle laugh. "The great masquerade is over forever. From now on, when we meet as equals. You have earned that right by standing with us, even when you were afraid. You have proven that the younger races are ready to know the truth about the universe." As Dr. Zithara's ship began the journey home, she thought about everything that had changed. The galaxy would never be the same. They now knew that they were not alone, that ancient guardians watched over them, and that when the greatest darkness came, there were those willing to stand against it. But most importantly, they had learned that the universe was not a cold, empty place where life struggled alone against the void. It was a garden, carefully tended by those who believed that existence was beautiful and worth protecting. And in that garden, every species, young or old, powerful or weak, had a place and a purpose. The war was over. A greater peace had begun.